Now let's turn to the BBC's 100 Women series, and one of them is Depelsha Thomas McGruder, who's the founder and president of Mums of Black Boys United, a nationwide US coalition of concerned mothers of black sons, which focuses on changing policies and perceptions that impact how black boys and men are treated by law enforcement and in society as a whole. After the murder of George Floyd and countless other notorious cases recently, it's an organisation that's grown incredibly fast and now has a presence in 20 US cities. Well, Depelsha joins me live now on the programme, and thank you so much for being with us there from New York. I read an article where you described being curled up in bed, crying about how you could protect your two young sons. Just tell me a little more emotionally, what has driven you to start this group?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. And this is such an amazing honor to be a part of this list of incredible women all over the world. What I say is I had the same reaction in the summer of 2016 that the world had in the summer of 2020 with the death of George Floyd. That summer, you may remember there were two back-to-back killings of innocent black men, Alton Sterling in Louisiana and Philando Castile in Minnesota. And they both had very graphic videos that were playing on the news. And as a mom of two young sons who were then only 4 and 7 years old, I just had a visceral reaction, and I felt paralyzed, I felt confused, I felt angry, I felt so many emotions that I just couldn't process, and I just felt like I had to do something. And, 5 years later, the whole world had that same reaction. But as a mom of two black sons, just seeing, story after story, because those weren't the first two, right? We'd already seen Trayvon Martin and Tamir Rice and Michael Brown and Eric Garner and so many before and after them, that was just my breaking point emotionally. So I did the only thing I knew to do in that moment, which was to reach out to other people who I knew would understand what I was feeling in that moment, and that's other moms of black sons.
I'll come back to that moment because, of course, it prompted all those pictures from Baton Rouge, the protest pictures that we're familiar with. But I wanted to ask a question of you first, because I spoke to the daughter of Rodney King at that notorious case back in the 1990s in the wake of George Floyd's murder. And she told me she was terrified of giving birth to a son because of the dangers that are out there. I mean, that is jaw-dropping to hear something like that. Is that something that you can connect to? Is it that bad?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that, because it's not something that comes up often, but many moms join our group when they first find out they're pregnant with a black son, because that's when the fear starts. As soon as you find out you're going to have a boy, at least here in America, that as he grows up, he's going to be viewed potentially as a predator, as someone who may do someone harm, as someone who's aggressive, as someone who's a potential threat. And psychological studies show that starts as young as 10 years old. So I literally, on my son's birthday, I used to, before starting MOBB United, before having the birthday party, I would cry, because I knew that each year they got older, they were losing, at least in society's eyes, part of their innocence. And at the time, my oldest son, who has autism, which is another additional risk because he can't just, comply and process information in the same way, he was 7. And I literally thought, when I was starting this organization, I have 3 years to solve this problem, because in 3 years he'll be 10 and the world will see him as someone who may do them harm. And that's just a very sad place to be as a parent.
That is an incredible description, that you actually cry on their birthday. I think I'm right in saying they're 4 and 7. Briefly on this question, what do you actually say to them?
Well, now they're 10 and 13. And, the beauty of starting Moms of Black Boys United is that I no longer crown their birthdays. So before this, I did. But now I have this powerful coalition of moms all around the country, and honestly all around the world, because we do have moms globally in the UK and the Caribbean and Canada and in different parts of the world in our Facebook group. But now that I have this community of support where we're all going through it together, I don't cry anymore. I'm able to just celebrate, and we're working together to find solutions to these issues.
Well, let's talk about those. Let's talk about those solutions. I mentioned those protests, Baton Rouge, and I'm going to put those pictures on the screen now as you talk to us, because the events that preceded that is what drove you to set up this group. Now, just tell our viewers how fast it actually grew when you established this group on social media.
Oh, wow. So the first thing I'll say is I only sent it to about 30 friends who I knew personally. I had never started a Facebook group, so I didn't even know how it worked. I was not intending to start an organization or a movement, but quickly 30 grew to 500, then 1,000, then 2,000, then 4,000. By dinner that night, it was 7,000. By the time I went to sleep, it was 21,000. And now it's more than 170,000 moms who mobilized and come together to speak out on these issues. So it really happened very rapidly, and I had to make a decision pretty quickly whether to do something or nothing with, the power of social media.
And you decided to do something, but I read that you said in those early days you didn't exactly know what to do, so you tried quite a lot of things. What in the end turned out to be the best avenue to pursue?
Well, we focus on two sides of the coin. We think, we have to focus on our responsibility to be well educated and equipped to navigate all these situations. So we really try to equip moms and sons to navigate three main systems: the education system, the criminal justice system, and mental health systems, because mental health is often a component. So that's one side, the education, advocacy, awareness, also narratives and changing perceptions of Black males from negative to positive. The other side of the coin, though, is advocacy. So we have a 501c4 organization that focuses on identifying legislative policy and also speaking out on current cases. As we know, very recently, we had the case of Ahmaud Arbery and his murder trial. That was a case we were very vocal about and got, finally justice and convictions. 5 years ago, it was practically unheard of to get convictions for murdering a Black male. Now we've seen Ahmaud Arbery, we've seen George Floyd, we've seen Laquan McDonald, we've seen Jordan Edwards. So it is turning the tide to have that consistent voice. We describe ourselves as a resource and a voice. So we're a resource for moms of Black sons, and we're a voice to speak out on these issues and keep them front and center, whether they're in the news or not.
Yes, and promoting the positive agenda that you also said is absolutely integral to this, a really important plank to what you've just described. Depelsha, we have to leave it there, but an absolute pleasure to talk to you. So thank you so much for joining us on BBC World News. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.